All right, I want to welcome everybody today. We're going to have Larry Goins of the Goins Group talk to us about HUD homes. And before we do that, I just want to have a little disclosure here uh, for everybody. The views expressed by the speakers at CAMAs are those of the speakers, and they don't necessarily reflect those of CAMA, its members, or employees. CAMA doesn't guarantee the accuracy of any information provided by the speakers. We recommend professional advisors should be consulted before implementing any options presented, and CAMA absolutely does not endorse or recommend any individual or organization or investment, including its speakers. CAMA's, its members, and employees do not accept liability for losses and damages arising from errors and omissions or any use of information provided by the speakers. Individuals are strongly encouraged by CamaPlan to conduct their own due diligence before making any investment choices. We do recommend that you do ask your accountants and other professionals to listen to this recording after the fact if they have any questions, or will answer them, or the speakers are happy to answer them too. CAMA doesn't act nor offer the services of an investment advisor, CPA, realtor, or attorney. And if any of that information is requested, get expert assistance and use the services of a competent professional when you're doing that. So, with all the legal mumbo jumbo taken care of, I just want to let you know that Larry's got decades of experience. He's an author, an educator. He's got two other webinars that we have recorded on our website here that goes into more of his background. So I don't want to take too much of the time building Larry up. He buys, sells, flips, holds, does private lending. He's been a friend of mine for over a decade. We've taken vacations together with our wives on cruises and down in Cabo. I've learned a lot from Larry, and I'm happy that he agreed to do some education for the CAMA Academy today and allowed us to record him. He's very knowledgeable going forward. The series that he's in, we've done general overall real estate. We did a seminar on filthy riches. We're going to talk about HUD homes, which Larry's been doing for a while. And then the end of February, we'll send out another invitation to do day trading of real estate and possibly private lending after that. So we have a series with Larry, and he's also agreed to give out a free book to those that are on listening today. So if you want to get a hold of Larry, here's two ways to do it. On the screen, 877 Larry Go, or LarryGoins.com on the internet. So at this point, Larry, what can you tell us about HUD houses and why you really like them? And welcome.
Oh, thanks a lot, Carl, man. I really appreciate you having me on. That's awesome. Yeah, this is really cool, man. The thing I love about you and about your group, your tribe is they're doers, they're movers and shakers, you know? I mean, a lot of RIA groups and stuff I go to, people are just thinking about it, but when they get to the level of having a self-directed account with you, man, they're already, they're doing stuff. So that's really cool. So let's talk about HUD houses. I wrote a book called HUD Homes Half Off, How to Buy HUD Houses for Pennies on the Dollar. I've actually bought houses in 12 different states right from my office in Lake Wiley, South Carolina. And the thing I love about HUD houses is that there's no marketing, there's no advertising, you don't have to worry about direct mail, no bandit signs, no Facebook ads, none of that stuff, right? Now, a lot of people even start out, let's start out at the basics, Carl. HUD, right? HUD, a HUD house becomes a HUD house because someone got an FHA loan to buy a house to live in it, and then they defaulted on that loan. Now, HUD doesn't make loans. They insure loans. In other words, lenders like Bank of America or Wells Fargo, they will underwrite a loan to HUD's specifications or guidelines. And when they do that, then HUD will insure that loan. In other words, the borrowers are going to make a little bit of a premium payment, mortgage insurance premium. They're going to add that to their payment. Every month it goes to HUD, and then what happens is, if the borrower defaults, the lender contacts HUD and says, hey, we want to cash in our insurance policy. So then HUD buys that loan, they foreclose on the property, then it becomes a HUD house, right? And you can buy every single HUD house anywhere in the country, as well as the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, which Carl, you and Vicky and Pam and I have been there together. You can buy all of these at one website, HUDHomestore.com. That's the only place you can buy a HUD house, is HUDHomestore.com. And one of the other cool things I like about HUD is they give you so much data. I mean, they provide what's called a PCR, a property condition report. And it's where they send somebody out to inspect the property. And check this out, Carl. They don't check out, does it need paint? Does it need carpet? Does it need landscaping? No, the things that they inspect are the roof, the wiring, the plumbing, the kitchen, the appliances, all of the major items in a house, the HVAC, all that stuff is what they inspect. So really all you have left to look at and estimate on repairs are the cosmetic things like paint and carpet. Pretty cool, huh?
No, I think that's great, and I appreciate you sharing the websites and the information and a lot of your secrets that it took you a long time to come up with. And let me just say at this point, if any of the audience has any questions, I don't know if I said this earlier, but type it in the question or chat box, and I'll feed those to Larry after we get through some of the other questions and the information um, that we're going to go through.
Awesome.
So,
Sounds good.
why do you like the HUD houses so much?
Man, I like them because there's so much data and it can all be done with no marketing expense, right? And now here's the thing. You do have to have, because all bids are submitted online by an agent with what's called an NAID number. That stands for National Identifier Number. But just about every agent or every agent's broker in charge will have an NAID number, right? And the cool thing about HUD is an auction. A lot of people don't really know that HUD is an auction. To buy a HUD house, it's an auction. But check it out. It's a daily auction. You can bid on every house that you want to bid on every single day. In fact, that's what we do. Bid on every house. We bid on every house in North and South Carolina and now Georgia every single day, right? And the cool thing about HUD is if there's a house listed, if it doesn't sell in about 30 days, they start dropping the price. Another 30 days, they start dropping the price. But quite frankly, because HUD wants to promote homeownership, when a house first goes on the market, it's first listed at HUDHomestore.com, it's only available to owner-occupied buyers, meaning somebody who's going to buy it to live in it. But that's typically only the first 10 to 15 to 30 days, and I've seen it different number of days in different parts of the country. Although I have seen a couple of areas where it's a real hot market and they open up to investors on day one. But for the most part, it's only available to owner-occupied buyers for the first 10 or 15 days.
Okay, and then you were talking about who can bid on it and the NID number. So do you get your realtor to bid on it, or do you get an NID number, or how does that work on it? Who can bid on the house?
Yeah, only licensed agents with an NAID number and nonprofits with an NAID number can bid. So either you need to have an agent, or you need to have an agent that you can hire an assistant for them and let the assistant put in the bids. That's what we do. We pay an agent, right? We pay an assistant, and the assistant is sitting in front of the computer about 2 or 3 hours a day putting in the bids for every property in North and South Carolina. That's how we do it, right?
Uh-huh.
So you can hire an assistant and they can do that for you, or your agent can do it. But I can tell you, if you're bidding on a lot of properties, the agent is going to get tired of it really quick. That's why we want to pay an assistant to log in and do that for the agent.
Okay. And then how do you get the big discounts? How do you know the value of the house?
Well, that's another cool thing about it. You could search online for all the different comps. Like, we just use Zillow. A lot of people think you've got to use some kind of a fancy subscription site. We use Zillow, and we just look at the sold comps. We don't look at the Zestimate. We look at the sold comps, right?
Yeah.
So what we do is we look at the sold comps. We estimate repairs based on the PCR report and the pictures. They usually have about 20 pictures or so, and we estimate the repairs and we put our bid in, right? And once we put our bid in, remember, HUD is a daily auction. We only have to put it in our spreadsheet. We use a special spreadsheet. Okay, I paid a developer $4,000 to create this spreadsheet because you can basically export the list from HUD of all the properties, and we import it into our spreadsheet, and then it does something magical. It creates links to comps, links to rental properties, a map to the property, and so much more. And it also color codes it, because it could be a property that's a newly listed property, a price reduction, a back on the market, or whatever, and they're color coded so we can look at it and see the properties that have price reductions and know which ones we need to probably tweak our offer. Plus, there's a color code for the ones that they counter offered on, because see, HUD can counter offer you. You don't have to. You're not just putting in a bid. You might put in a bid and they come back and counter you. And then when they do that, you can either counter back, or you can submit a new bid, or you can accept their counter or just ignore it and it'll expire.
In your book, do you talk about your spreadsheet or how it was built, or is there a class you can go to or pay for your
Absolutely. In
spreadsheet?
the book, it goes over it in detail and shows what we do and how we do. And in fact, even though it's a $4,000 spreadsheet, if they get a copy of the book, there's a link in there shows you where to get the spreadsheet for free.
Okay. That seems great. And we,
And
we
they can
will.
just call. They can call 877 Larry Go and talk to Zenobia, and Zenobia will get them the investor's kit, which includes the book as well as the bonuses that go with it and a few other things as well.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thanks for sharing that part of it.
Sure.
Um, so let's say you put the bid in. Do you have to, how do you actually buy the house? Do you go to closing, or do they come to your house, or do they come to your title company, or do you go to theirs, or what?
Well, it's pretty interesting, Carl. A while back, a couple of years ago, maybe even as recent as a year ago, HUD used to have their own attorneys, right? Well, they don't do that anymore because HUD was so cheap. They wouldn't pay an attorney very much closing fees. So the attorneys had to hire cheap, inexperienced labor to be able to do it, but they thought they would make it up in volume. In fact, when they used to have their own attorneys, even though they had their own attorney, I hired my own attorney and I paid my own attorney to deal with their attorneys because we had to take up their slack, right? But fortunately now, HUD does not have their own attorneys, so you can pick whatever attorney you want, and we typically pick like a 30-day closing, and then we just push forward toward closing. Now, HUD contracts are not assignable, and there's no due diligence period. Very, very important, guys. Not assignable, and there's no due diligence period. So whenever you make a bid on a HUD house, they don't care where you get the money, right? You could get a hard money loan, a private money loan. You could
Buy
use
it
your
from your
money,
IRA?
but yeah, I was getting ready to say you could use your CamaPlan account or use someone else's CamaPlan account that's going to loan you the money, on a non-recourse loan or partner with you. They don't care where it comes from as long as it's a cash sale to them, right? And the deposits are very simple. If the purchase price is 50,000 or below, the deposit or earnest money is $500. If the purchase price is over 50,000, the earnest money is $1,000.
Okay, so um, I know I've talked to you about this before. So you make an offer, a counter offer, maybe you counter again, but at some point HUD accepts the offer.
Right.
Um, so what happens at that point? You send in your 500 or $1,000, and then what happens?
Yeah, it used to be you had to sign everything in blue ink and they would overnight you the paperwork. But now they finally, just about 6 or 8 months ago, started doing DocuSign. So as soon as the bid is accepted, by 3 o'clock the next day, your agent that submitted the bid for you will get a DocuSign document with all of the contract and addendums, right? And the agent signs it. Once they sign it digitally, then when they click submit, then it comes over to us and we sign it. When we sign it and click submit, then it goes back to the asset manager for HUD, and then we proceed forward toward the closing, and we get our attorney. Some states are title company states, some states are attorney. We are an attorney state. So we get our attorney, send them the contract, and then just move forward with toward closing. Now remember, even though I wholesale a lot of properties and I also do seller financing and lease options, but even if you want to wholesale a property, you'll have to do a double closing because HUD does not allow for assignments. Make sense?
Yep, no, I heard that before. Now, you do the DocuSign. How do they get the money? How do they get
Okay.
the 500 or 1,000?
We can either wire it to them or we can overnight it to them with the
Cashier's check?
well, yeah, exactly. It's got to be an official bank check, cashier's check, certified funds, money order, whatever. It can't be just a regular, you know, a company checking account or a personal checking account check.
Gotcha. So, and then you turn it over to the attorney and then it closes just like any other closing, basically, and you get
Yeah,
a warranty deed?
exactly. But that doesn't mean now you get a limited warranty deed, yeah, or special warranty or limited warranty deed, just like all the other banks. But
Okay.
what we do is we start marketing the property right away. Now, we put it on our website, we put it on Craigslist, Facebook, but you got to make sure don't put the address out there because HUD doesn't like you marketing their property before you own it. So we market that we have a property, a 3 bedroom, 1 bath, in whatever it is, Vale, North Carolina, and here's a picture of it. And we take our own picture, so it's not the same picture that was online, and we try to take it at a different angle, right? Because they don't like you marketing their property prior to you owning it, right?
I understand that part of it. And
Yeah.
they probably, what do? Put you on a blackball list if they catch you doing it?
Here's the unique thing, and it's happened to me 3 or 4 times over the years. But what they do is they contact your agent that submitted the bid and tell the agent. Now, we've learned what to do and what not to do. That's why I'm telling you guys to, take a different picture at a different angle. Don't put the address up. We had one realtor one time that was tore up at us, mad at us because even though we bought the property through HUD, the listing agent was so mad that we were reselling it for a higher price. I guess they were disappointed that they weren't getting more commission, but they actually took one of our signs up. We have these signs that say foreclosure, and we put the price on it, and we never, ever, ever put a sign in the front yard of the house. We'll put them in the neighborhood. We'll put them in front of Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, convenience stores, Home Depot, and Lowe's, but we never put them in front of the house. So this listing agent happened to be on our buyers list and saw us send out an email about the property. They went around, grabbed one of our signs, pulled it up, and put it in the front yard of the HUD house we were buying, and took a picture of my sign in the front yard and sent that to the asset manager. And that got my realtor in big trouble, right? So,
Gotcha. Nice guys.
I
Um,
know, right?
yeah. Um, so Larry, last time we talked, you can get some big discounts on there. Do you have any strategies that you use for, what your bids are?
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a lot of different ways to look for deals, and I go into this in detail in the book, but let me just run down a few of them off the top of my head, okay?
Sure.
Number one is more days on the market equal a bigger discount. By the time you start getting to 60 to 75 days on the market, they're willing to negotiate. Now, I did buy a house one time. It was 17 days on the market, and I paid 35% of list. Now, the only reason in the world, think about this, the only reason in the world I was able to get that deal is because I was offering 35% of list price from day one. And on day 17, they took it. But I told the guys in the office, we have a property meeting every week. In fact, we just got through with a property meeting about an hour ago. We've got about 20 some deals in the pipeline. But I told my guys, I said, whatever you do, make sure you dot every I, cross every T, get the paperwork in and get that money in ASAP. Because somebody at the asset manager's office clicked the wrong button and accepted our bid. Because I've never, ever in the past or since seen them accept a 35% offer unless the property had been on the market at least 60, most of the time 75 to 90 days, right?
Yeah, no, I can see that.
Now,
So,
another thing, there's another thing that you could do. You want to look for mispriced properties. Mispriced properties. We bought a house a while back that we actually paid 103% of list. It was listed for 44.5, and we paid 45 and some change. So, but the comps were coming in at 90 to 120. And when we called the listing agent and asked him what kind of work it need, the listing agent said it needs curtains. That's it. And it already had blinds, right? So we put in a bid over list because she said there's a couple of other investors bidding on it. So we put in a bid of 45,601, I believe was our bid. And we got that bid accepted. And we immediately put it on the market for $99,900 with the owner financing with $10,000 down. And the third person that looked at it said, would you take $89,900 if I get my own financing from my credit union? Now, of course. So look for mispriced properties, right? Sometimes you can pay more than list and still sell it. We made about $38,000 net on that deal, and we didn't touch it. That's a fix and flip without the fix, right?
yeah, no, that's good.
The next thing you want to look for is small towns. Small towns equal big profits. Now, I bid on everything, right? In the big cities and the small towns. But I got to tell you, the main bids you're going to get accepted, especially if you're offering 20, 30, 40% of list, is in the small towns, the bedroom communities, one or two counties outside of a major MSA. That's where you're going to get the bids accepted. Also, you want to look for anomalies in bedrooms and baths, okay? It might be listed as a two-bedroom, but once you do a little bit of research on Zillow and the tax records and whatever, Realtor.com, it might be listed at HUD Home Store as a two-bedroom, but it's actually a three-bedroom. It might be listed as a one-bath, but it's really a two-bath. So look for those mispriced properties because people who set up alerts, they may only want a property that's a minimum of a three-bedroom, two-bath, or even a three-bedroom, one-bath. And if it's listed for a two-bedroom, it won't even come up on their radar, right? You also want to look for anomalies in the square footage. I've seen them where they had them listed at 975 square feet, and it was really 1,975 square feet. So people who have that search criteria set up for $1,000 and up, or 1,000 square feet and up, that property wouldn't have even come up on their search results. So you want to look for that too. So those are just some things that we look for in being able to get our bids, more bids accepted at a deep, deep discount.
Question on that, if sometimes they make those mistakes, do they ever make mistakes on the PCR inspections and the house being different shape than what it said?
Oh man, that's a great question. Great question. I bought a house one time. I bought a house one time and it said that it needed a roof, right? And it happened to be not too far from where we are. So I went down and looked at it myself. They had a tarp on the roof, Carl. I got up there and I looked at it. I pulled the tarp off and it had where the reason they put a tarp on it, okay? It was over the kitchen area. You go inside the house and you look up, and there was about a 2 foot by 4 foot area of the ceiling that had been patched, fixed up, repatched, and sprayed with popcorn and all that. So go up on the roof, pull the tarp off, there's nothing there. Nothing there. So what I figured out had happened was the asset managers, they send out people to inspect these properties when they get them back, right? So the asset managers, the field service rep that went out there, here's what I think happened. They got out there, they're walking through the house looking to see what happened. They look up at the ceiling in the kitchen and say, that ceiling looks like it's been patched. How much do we get paid to put a tarp on a roof? Oh, $200. Get a tarp out of the truck, right? So they went and put a tarp on the roof, and we pulled it off. We ran water on it. We did everything trying to make it leak. What I figured out was before the last roof had been put on, they took out the skylight that was in the kitchen and they had to patch the ceiling where the skylight was. But the asset manager, the field service rep, thought they could get paid for putting a tarp on, which I'm sure they did, but there was no leak in the roof. So that's an example of it being less than what you thought it was on the PCR, but I've also had it be worse. I've also had them say where, the HVAC works and you get out there and maybe it's been stolen or something like that, right? So which HUD, if you're an investor and you're buying a HUD house, it's as is where is. There's no inspection period. The only time you're able to cancel a contract and get your deposit back is if you could show them something that has changed from the time you got it under contract until closing. For example, we've had somebody break in and steal the appliances out of a house after we've got it under contract. Now, typically in something like that, they're not going to let you cancel the contract, but they'll give you a credit, maybe $800 credit or something on the closing. But if there's some major stuff wrong, unless it happened from the time you got it under contract until closing, they're not going to let you out of the contract unless you lose your deposit. How do you like that?
No, I think that's great. I'm just kind of thinking of it. I mean, it's pretty fair. I guess that's what other sellers would do too if you got down to that point. So it doesn't seem like it's out of the ordinary.
No,
Um,
not.
so basically, somebody in you or somebody in your office goes to a HUD Home store and starts um, looking at these online, and then putting them against Zillow or Realtor.com or a combination of those, and then they basically tell the assistant of the agent to go put bids on it at this amount, and some are accepted and some aren't accepted and counterparted. But how do you know? I mean, if they aren't accepted, do they send you a declined, or is it just they don't answer you and you got to wait till the next day, or what?
That's a good question, Carl. When you submit a bid on a HUD house, one of three things can happen. Either nothing happens and your bid just expires, or you could get a counter offer, or you could get an accepted offer, right? If nothing happens and you don't hear from them, then your bid simply expired. Nobody has any further obligation, right? if you get a counter offer, you can do one of four things. You can ignore it and the counter offer will expire. You can counter back a different number. You can submit a whole new bid, or you can accept their counter, right? That's the four things that you can do if you get a counter. And the third thing that can happen is you get an accepted bid. They send the documents to the listing agent. They send them to you. Everybody signs them via DocuSign, and you move forward toward the closing.
Oh, you got all the bases covered there.
Yeah.
Can't really have there. So, on an average, how many of these do you do a year or a month, or and what kind of discounts are you finding on them? I'm assuming those deals you buy for 45 and sell for 90 don't come through every day.
No, that they sure don't. But here's the thing. It's like poker. You can't win it if you're not in it. You got to be in the game and you got to be putting your offers in, right? So you can't just pick one or two properties here. We actually do make an offer on every HUD house in North and South Carolina and now Georgia every day. Now that's not a lot of them. Might be 30 in one state, 60 in another one, 40 in another one, but we're putting in bids every single day, right? And you never know when they're going to accept the bid. You just don't know. And the way our spreadsheet works is, let's say our top bid is $50,000. Maybe it's listed for 90 and our top bid is 50. Well, on Monday, we're going to bid 46, on Tuesday 47, on Wednesday 48, on Thursday 49, and on Friday 50. On Monday, we start back at 46. Now, those aren't the exact numbers. There's a formula. I can't remember what the formula is, but it's so we're putting in a different bid every single day. And I'm surprised that HUD hasn't figured out, especially since we're bidding every day. I'm surprised they haven't figured out that that they should only accept our bids on Friday, right?
Yeah,
That they
right.
every day of the week. So and we've done as many as I remember 2 years ago in December, we did 21 deals, HUD deals, just in December because it's the end of the year. They want to get them off the books, right? But for the most part, we might do 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, whatever, just depending on how many of them there are. I'll be the first one to tell you there's not near as many HUD houses as there used to be. I mean, like right now, if you're in a state where there's 50, when the market takes a downturn, you're probably going to see 150 or 200 in that state, right? That's just the way it is.
Okay, so because the market's up at this time that we're talking, there's more people buying them, and they think that prices are going to continue to rise, and more people are coming in. So
It's
I
just
think,
like anything else. You got to keep putting in your offers to get a deal.
okay. So if you talk about those every single day, so that's 60. So you can put in 120 a day, and basically you have the money there, or you can get the money within the 30 days of closing
Right.
uh, to close these things. Might be a
Exactly.
lot of work, but you're set up with it. And then how many, do you keep many of these, or do you try to flip all of them, or what?
Well, right now I'm in a stash cash for the crash mode, right?
Okay.
Except for the ones in my retirement accounts, like my accounts at CamaPlan. Uh, we buy and hold stuff there, but outside of it, I'm buying and selling and buying and selling and buying and selling. And then after everything goes on sale, in addition to my CamaPlan accounts, outside of that and just regular LLCs, we'll buy and hold. But right now we're buying and selling everything.
Okay. I like that stash for the crash, huh?
Stash cash for the crash.
Gotcha. Um, we promised our listeners they could learn more about buying HUD houses for pennies on the dollar. Can you give that link for the free HUD book again so that they have it? And I'll look at some of the questions that came in.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, they could either call Zenobia in my office, 877 Larry Go, and just tell them they want the investor's kit, which will include the HUD book, my real estate day trading book that we're going to do on another webinar in this series, And also they'll get some other videos about filthy riches, which we've talked about already in this series, and some other stuff as well. Or if they want to do it online, they can go to freehudbook.com. Freehudbook.com.
Hey, Larry, thanks for that information. We've got another question. So there's a listing agent who works for HUD, who, if we are the successful bidder, we then engage them and talk to them.
You don't necessarily have to, but it's always good to make a phone call, and you can say, hey, I just got the bid accepted. I understand you're the listing agent. What can you tell me about this property? Do you have any additional pictures, any additional information? Is it a better rental area or a better fix and flip? What could I rent it for? What do you think you could sell it for after I fix it up? All those good questions. So you will reach out to them, but just to get some more information during your due diligence. That's it.
Gotcha. Another question from Jim is, all of these properties are unoccupied, or do you ever have anybody squatting in them? Or
That's the cool thing about a HUD house, is all HUD houses are totally cleaned out, and if they're smelly, if they have, like, there's been a bunch of animals and stuff in there and it's nasty smelling, HUD will have the asset manager have the carpet removed. So it's either got carpet and the house doesn't stink, or if the house stinks, then they'll remove the carpet. And in other words, I've never been into a smelly HUD house. Never. Right? They don't do work on them. They don't fix them up, but they'll secure them, change the locks. If there's a porch that maybe, or a deck that maybe the rails are gone, they'll have the rails replaced for safety issues. If there's a pool, they'll have it covered up over with plywood or something to keep somebody from falling in it. But I've never been in a trashed or a smelly HUD house. Good question.
yeah, and basically they lock it up pretty tight and post it and things like that, so that the police
Absolutely.
know and no squatters get into it,
Exactly.
if I remember.
But they also check them every week. They send somebody by to inspect them every single week.
Is that the asset manager, or do
Yes.
they get a home inspector for the PCR, and is it the same guy? Or
Well, what they do is the way it works is HUD is like the banks, right? So HUD hires an asset manager. They have one per state, and they bid, like just about a year or so ago, they put out bids for asset managers for each state, and whichever asset manager won that state now has the HUD contract as an asset manager. So whatever asset manager, they'll send a field service rep out, and every single week they have a field service rep that goes by there and inspects the property, make sure that maybe no pipes were burst, or no vandalism, or no squatters or whatever, right? So they have somebody go by and check every single week. In fact, there's a sign-in sheet sitting on the kitchen counter of every HUD house, and every week you walk in there, you look at it, and they sign it. They've signed it, they've dated it, they've signed their name, and so you can see where somebody has inspected that property every single week. So they just know what's going on with it, right? So yeah, you don't have to worry about anybody squatting in a HUD house. How about that?
I think that's good. I actually was on mute there for a little bit, and I got another question in there. It said you've talked about a lot of good deals with HUD houses. Have you ever had a catastrophe or a bad deal?
You know what? That's a great question. And I'll be the first one to tell you that if you do enough real estate, you will lose money, right, Carl? We know about that, don't we?
Yeah, if you're in real estate long enough, you're going to lose money.
You're gonna lose money. I had one deal that I bought that I lost $75,000 on the house. Now, I don't want to scare you away about HUD houses, okay? Because this was a deal where I bought it, and I'm thinking, man, I could put paint and carpet in this house and I could sell it and make a killing. So it was back in the middle of winter, right? It was in the middle of winter, and we got the house all fixed it up, looking really good. Man, I was really excited. Hardwood floors, carpet, new paint, new fixtures, kitchen looking good. And the day before the open house, we had the coldest temperatures we had had in several years. I got a call on Saturday morning early, the day before the open house, and the neighbor said, "Larry, I don't know what's going on over here, but there's water running out the front door and the windows are all fogged up." So what do you think happened? The pipes
Uh-oh.
burst, right?
Yeah.
So here's what happened. The contractor left the water on, the heat off. Now, here's another really good tip for you guys. Insurance companies will not pay a claim for water damage if the water is on, but the heat is not, right? So I got zero money out of that. And it was a 2-story house with a double garage, about a 3,000 square foot house, and it leaked in the upstairs bathroom. So it leaked and it came out of the bathroom, out into the hall, down the steps, all the way down to the first floor. We had to remove the sheetrock from the waist down on the second floor, all the way down to the first floor, take up the hardwood floors, the subflooring, everything, and replace it. That was a $75,000 remodel and that much more time. And then I ended up having to sell the house at a discount because the market had turned. So the moral of that story is always make sure if it's cold, make your contractor send you a picture of the thermostat before they leave every day. Right?
Yep. No, that's one of those that are there. I actually just had a leak in my house while I was out of town, and I just went through it all the time too. So
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's no good. And the other moral of that story is don't do rehabs. I hate rehabs.
yeah, right. Remember you telling me that you're done with those, but
I
you
hate
like
them.
the ones that just need curtains.
Exactly. Exactly.
Um, another question here is, do you see HUD homes in the MLS?
Oh, absolutely. They're all listed at realtor.com. They're on the MLS, but the only place you can bid is at hudhomestore.com. They're all listed on the MLS. They have a listing agent. Why? I don't know, because the listing agent doesn't really do anything. I don't mean that in a bad way toward agents, but they really don't. All the bids are at hudhomestore.com. But they do all have a listing agent, and they're all at hudhomestore.com. And yes, they're on the MLS as well. Now, here's another little thing. Some people say, well, I'm an agent. Can I bid on a HUD house for myself? Yes, you can. The only time you cannot bid on a HUD house for yourself is if you are the listing agent, right? If you're the listing agent, you cannot bid on a HUD home for yourself. But any other agents can absolutely.
Good to know. Um, Larry, I appreciate your time today. If you can give us some parting words, and again, we'll go over how they can contact you with any other slides, and they obviously have heard or any other questions, and how to get your book. That would be great.
Sure, sure. Well, I think maybe parting words would be, guys, just take action. Just take action. Don't be afraid of a HUD house. There's actually more data and information on the HUD houses than just about any other type of property out there on the market, right? And don't be afraid. Get out there and put some bids together. Get the book. The book's going to tell you everything you need to know to be able to do deals. Call 877 Larry Go, or just go to freehudbook.com. You can opt in there to get the book, and then there's another video on the next page that'll give you some more training.
Thanks, Larry. I appreciate that. And phone number is 877 Larry Go. Call that. Somebody will help you get set up with an investor kit or a free book. And then also you can go to HUD Homes dot, what was it? HUD free
Free.
HUD book.
freehudbook.com.
Okay. And that'll give you more information. So again, Larry, thank you very much. Tell Pam and the family we said hi, and I appreciate it very much that you came on and gave us your time today and answered these questions. We will have this recorded at the CamaPlan website and